Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is your third daily dose of happy, and we're doing the call-in show this evening. This is our third week doing it, Tom. And I'm hopeful we're going to get some callers tonight. Even if we don't, we're going to have good stuff to talk about because we're going to be carrying on what we talked about Monday morning. But how you doing? How are things going? Are you having a good week?
Yeah, so far having a good week. Just a few days into it, but already it's off to a good start and feeling really excited about life and all the prospects and possibilities that lie in front of me.
Fantastic.
In this moment.
Yeah,
it all feels good.
That's really good. I'm actually in a good mood because we just got a new laptop that's going to, I believe, eliminate all those drop sound problems we've experienced over the past months. And boy, won't that be great. I mean, I can't tell you how excited I am to have that
Don't have to have any of that anymore.
That's right. Oh my goodness. I am so glad that's gone. But went out to get it after, this afternoon's second daily dose. It's the 4 p.m. show, and I was telling Wendy afterward, I got to go. I can't chat with you afterward. I got a laptop to go by.
You did it all in that short window.
Yeah. I got it all set up, and I think I kind of did it in record time. Kind of waiting to the last second in terms of getting the show on the road here, because obviously we were about a minute late, but that's just because I hadn't got the Zoom platform completely set up. But it's working. It's going. We're broadcasting, and that's all that really matters. And that's the good news. Any other good news going on at your end?
Well, I was trying to put it into words earlier, and I didn't really finish.
Couldn't find the right combination, huh?
Well, yeah, I didn't think about it long enough, but it's basically just a lot about what our topic is about today, which is that realizing that any concerns I have about my life are incredibly mutable. They're very temporary. And, that's what we want to talk about a little bit tonight. But I just was having that realization, I guess, going to my comedy improv class again last night and just seeing how incredible it is to just live in the moment and to constantly be choosing based on what spirit or what life itself wants to show me next, almost to entertain me when I'm surrendered, when I'm just really open to be receptive, to be receiving the impulses that come to me. Right. And of course, that's what comedy improv entirely is about. When we were doing a bunch of different exercises last night and just seeing, just watching these scenes unfold and the different ways they unfolded and just the spontaneity of it. It's really fun. It's really beautiful. And realizing that life is like that if we let it be.
If we let it be. Yeah. I mean, that's just it. I mean, you're doing comedy improv. If there's any situation where the phrase nothing serious going on here applies more, I don't know what it is.
And yet people get really uptight about it.
Oh, really?
Well, they can, because it's just like doing public speaking.
True.
You're going to step out on a stage and make yourself completely vulnerable and trust that something's going to come through you and that it's going to be something witty enough or fun enough or interesting enough to keep a scene going. You could make that serious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the whole, like all the exercises we do, the warm-up exercises are all to get us to loosen up and realize that it's just about flowing. It's just about flowing and just being in a soothing place within yourself where you just don't care. You just let it go, let it flow.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, talk about letting it flow. I've been watching, I have little meters that I can watch that show me what's going on with the podcast, what our volume levels are and so forth. And among other things, I can see what's going on with the internet connection that would drop periodically. And it's just flowing smoothly. I am so excited. So I just had to mention that.
Haven't seen that before, huh?
No, it's been a while since I've seen that.
So it had to do with that new computer.
Yeah, the old one was like 5 years old, and the internet card inside that's built into it that's where the problem was. It was getting a little bit flaky. And so when you have a new one, obviously, you don't have a flaky Ethernet card anymore, and that's good. That's a good thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
cool.
I don't care how the rest of the show goes. I'm excited.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that coming off excitement, it'll only be a good show, because that's the best way to open our doors to receiving. The next best thing is when we're in an excited place. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good feeling place. Yeah.
And by the way, if you are listening in live, and we hope that you are, because that's one of the reasons that we are doing this Tuesday evening show every week, is to get you to listen live and to join us on a call and so forth. If you're listening live, you are almost certainly listening on our homepage at loatoday.net. And on that homepage, you will see all kinds of information, including how to connect to us when we're live. And it's pretty simple. You just click the links there, and it just takes you right through. So, take advantage and connect in, because we'd love to hear from you and see what you have to say. If you have any questions, if you just want to share, how long you've been listening to the show. And it doesn't matter what it is that you want to talk about. We just want to get the other perspective in here, the listener perspective. And that's why we're doing this Tuesday evening show. So We'll just mention that every 10 minutes or so until somebody calls in, or until we say, you know what, we're tired of mentioning it every 10 minutes.
Yeah, and if the things we're saying really push your buttons, or they inspire you, or whatever, let us know. It'd be cool to get in a discussion with you, too.
It is, yeah. It's really cool. And we have had callers. We've had one Tuesday night caller. We've had other callers during the day, too, at various times. And it's great. It is so fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, just getting that third person in there just makes all the difference in the world. So, I mean, we're up for it when you are. Just connect and call, and we'll be doing it. Also, by the way, just to remind you, while you're listening, if you're still just kind of thinking about it, well, two things. First, if you don't really want to talk just yet, but you kind of want to get a message to us, you can actually do that through that same Zoom platform. You click that same link, and if you don't really want to talk to us, that's fine. You don't have to unmute your mic or anything when you connect in. But there's a little chat thing that you can type into there. So just by going to that link, you can actually type a little chat message to us and say hi. So if you want to do that, that's fine too. We'd love to hear that as well. And also on that page is information about, of course, how to subscribe to the podcast, and all kinds of social media icons for sharing the fact that you're liking the podcast. So we have a lot of things we want you to do when you're on the homepage listening to us. And, so take advantage, because we're doing this show for you. So, the topic of, nothing serious going on here.
Yeah.
That one, we spent a lot of time on Monday morning on that one, but as the week has been progressing, I'm realizing just how important it is. Like, I was stressing out, for instance, over the computer problem, right? That's what led me to buy the computer.
Sure.
But the fact is, there was really nothing serious going on that I really had to worry about. It's just, okay, well, I got to get a new computer. Great, I got a new computer. Nothing serious going on here. How often, though, do we take it the other way? Oh, God, the program isn't working properly. Why can't I get a connection? I mean, I did that. I've been doing that the last 3 months. It's so easy to do. So what's the trick? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit on Monday, but let's reiterate again. What's the trick to getting into that mode of thinking that says there's nothing serious going on here?
Oh, there's so many tricks. And we did talk about a number of them on Monday, and I can't even remember all the things we said, but I do know that it's an ongoing conversation, that it can pick up that conversation any place, especially if you're talking about law of attraction and the things that Abraham Hicks say, and the things that we're all understanding in our own lives, that, okay, how can we say there's nothing serious going on here when, of course, we look externally and say it's pretty serious that people die, and it's pretty serious that people suffer, and then we look at our own lives and say it's pretty serious that I suffer, and it's pretty serious that I feel, pain in my body, and I feel worry about money, and I feel anxious about my job, and I feel, upset about my relationship, and angry at my children. I mean, there's so many things we can say, like, it seems irresponsible almost in a way to say there's nothing serious going on, because, we feel so heavy about things sometimes. Right. And, in fact, I was going to ask you, at some point in this podcast, ask you Walt, how does it work for you? I mean, how many things are you able to not feel serious about? And how many things do you still feel serious about? I know I could make quite a list of things that still, they push my buttons sometimes. And that's the very essence of it. And so I'll ask you that question, what things are you overcoming feeling serious about, or how is that working for you?
Well, not to belabor it, I have one less thing to worry about because I have a new computer. So, I mean, that's a good one. But
yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one. But beyond that, actually, it's been interesting over the last year and a half or so. Ever since Joel Elston challenged me to do what he'd been doing, which was basically not paying attention to the news, and I've been doing that with an occasional little peek here and there through Google News, but I don't go read news articles much anymore. Mm-hmm. That has made a huge impact on me in terms of not worrying about stuff. I still have a tendency to do it, but not nearly as much as I used to. And then about 10 days ago, we talked about this, Cindy and I talked about this morning. About 10 days ago, I took up the challenge of the mirror exercise. This is where every day you talk into the mirror, right? And you tell yourself, I love you, and I think you're wonderful, and you just say all these things to yourself without blinking and without turning away, which is not easy to do. And that the reason I took that one on is because Cindy told me that a friend of hers who knew Jack Canfield said that Jack uses that. Jack, of course, being the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Jack uses that, and he said that after some 30 or 40 days of using it, all his negative chatter in his head stopped. Mm-hmm. And I said, ooh, I want me some of that. So that got me going. That was enough for me to say, I want to give this thing a try. So I've been doing it for 10 days, and I can't say the negative chatter has stopped, but it sure has slowed down. I don't get it as much. It's still there. I mean, I can't say it's gone yet. It's not gone. And there are times when, it's possible for situations to kind of get my goat, but not nearly as much. So, you ask me what things are still, do I take too seriously? There's just not as much of it. It used to be, for instance, many years ago, I would get really, really serious about politics. And you know what the extent of my attention to politics these days is? It's to laugh what's going on with the new administration because there's so much funny stuff going on there. And that's it. I mean, I used to constantly get into online discussions and, all kinds of, taking on all kinds of negative stances. I don't want this. I don't want that. All that kind of thing. And I don't do any of that anymore. It's all gone. I just don't do it anymore. So for me, the whole topic of, nothing serious going on here has become largely true, which is, it's great. I love it. I just want to make it 100%.
So do you feel just generally lighthearted about your life and not pretty much that, there's nothing that you can believe that statement?
I would say I'm about 90 to 95% there. I'm not 100% there, but I'm getting there. And the impact on my life in terms of not being locked into all the fear-based stuff and all the, oh my God, all these terrible things are going on stuff. Not being locked into that is in and of itself lifting. It just lifts you up. You become buoyant because of that. And you just don't even fret about it anymore. Now, are there things that go on in my life that I have to deal with, problematic things? Well, yeah, computers, for example. But they just don't affect me as much. They affect me. It's not like there's no effect. It's just, it doesn't have, you know how when you're in a relatively bad place, or even a very bad place, and every little thing just weighs you down like it's, 1,000 pounds. You know that feeling? That feeling is gone. And it's taken me a long time to get here, but I am proud to say that feeling is gone. Now, I do get 50-pound weights sometimes, but not 1,000-pound weights. The 1,000-pound weights, they're gone.
So do you feel like the things that you're not watching on the news or about the weather or anything that might be foreboding of negative consequences in the world, that it doesn't matter? That you're not looking at those things, that they're not going to come back and bite you in the butt later on?
I don't really worry about that. I actually believe what Abraham has been teaching us, which is that the only things that are going to come into your life are the things that you focus on. And everything that comes into your life is due to you in one way or another focusing on it, or focusing on something that has at least a similar vibration to it. So I figure as long as I'm not actively focusing on it, it's not going to directly affect me. Now, is the stuff going on and affecting other people? Well, sure, yeah. And they're as hard as it is to say, they are attracting it into their lives. Mm-hmm. My hope, with the podcast especially, is that the more listeners we get and the more people who kind of join in the conversation with us and, you know, explore what Abraham teaches and explore even what other LOA teachers teach, the more that happens, more and more and more people are going to be empowered to stop paying attention to all the junk. And so they're not going to be attracting it into their lives either. So I can't do anything about all the junk that's going on out there. I can't actually directly affect that. I can't say, okay, I'm going to apply the law of attraction to drive it away. It doesn't work that way, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think our vibration actually is part of the whole mix. So if we are focusing on joy and more positive experience of our life, and we're soothing ourselves and we're uplifting our own heart, you know, we're feeling better and better all the time, our vibration is emanating into the world. And it's hard to say how far that vibration goes.
Well, that's true. I mean,
some say one uplifted person is worth 10,000 negative people, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but there's people that say that.
Well, then we're good for 20,000 people, so that's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, easily.
Add in Cindy, Wendy, Joel, and David, now we're 60,000.
As long as we're uplifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I just think it's a vibratory universe. And so whatever I am truly vibrating with, I am affecting everything. And if it's a holographic universe where everything is actually happening simultaneously throughout the whole universe, which is what quantum physics seems to be hinting at, or maybe directly saying, I don't know, but it's definitely a lot of information out there in the scientific and the pseudoscientific metaphysical community that says every vibration is having an impact. You know, like that old saying that when a butterfly flaps its wings in South America, a hurricane brews in the Caribbean or something, and that they're all tied together. So,
wow,
I
guess I got to be careful about flapping my arms then.
Yeah,
or your lips,
or,
oh,
yeah.
My goodness.
So I think everything is tied together, and that's why I think it is really wonderful to be focusing on things that are more uplifting and more soothing and more joyful and more fun, because that's our choice. And if we choose that, I think it really does make a difference on a macro scale as well as a micro scale.
Let me flip it around to you, because you asked me the question. Let me ask you the question. What's the impact on you of all this stuff that's been going on?
Oh, you mean like in the news and everything?
Yeah, all that.
Oh, well, I mean, sometimes I get concerned that there could be blowback, as the word goes, of the effects of climate change, for example, might one day just be right in front of my eyes really vividly. If different things happen, like all the forests start dying and different things, or food's not available like it used to be, and different things that a lot of people are saying are in the works here. But you know what? It's like I have decided I actually create affirmations that say that the earth is a living organism and the earth is taking care of itself, and I'm going to trust. I'm not going to spend my time any longer. And I've spent a lot of my adult life worried about climate change. Actually, ever since I was in college, and that was back in the 70s, I was worried about climate change because that's when Earth Day started and all these things were just becoming part of the public dialogue. And I was really concerned. I was living in Los Angeles, and I really believed that things were looking really bad. And now it's been 50 years, and I still can't completely not think about that stuff, but the same as I can't not think about sometimes other problems that show up in my life. And the way I deal with it all is that I'm listening to Abraham and understanding that everything I'm thinking about is continuing to create my reality going forward, everything I'm feeling. So therefore, what do I want to think about? What do I want to feel? What kind of life do I want to have? And so therefore I am drawing lines very clearly with myself about things I no longer wish to think about, things I no longer wish to have in my consciousness. So if I have an idea about not having enough money, or if I have an idea about how hard it is to find the right relationship, or it's difficult to get my health the way I want my health to be, whatever it is, I just say, that's the thoughts I can't entertain. It's just not okay for me any longer to entertain thoughts about what I don't want. So if the thoughts feel bad and they're bringing me down and they're aggravating me, I just go, okay, those are thoughts that I've got to move away from.
Good for
and
you.
So what I do is I'm looking more and more for replacing them. That's why I'm in comedy improv. That's why I do Tai Chi classes. That's why I play my guitar a lot. That's why I try to have a lot of friends. That's why I watch good things on the television, whenever I do. All the different things that I can do, go for a walk in nature, anything I can do that's lighthearted and fun. And then I watch myself talk, like, what am I saying to myself? And as soon as I start slipping into those places of frustration and aggravation and anger or fear, I just go, oh, wait a minute. That's the thoughts I don't want anymore. What's the thought I want instead?
Yeah, that's also good. That's good. That's good stuff. And it's, I don't know about you, when I am trying to deal with that negative self-talk and I notice something comes up, I always have I mentioned this during our 4:00 podcast. I always have a cheat sheet, so to speak, a little short list of things I can go to when I'm finding myself to be in a, really down place, an unhappy place, and I want to climb out of it. And the first thing I do is I just kind of yell out to myself, stop! Like, stop what you're doing. Just don't do that anymore. And then once I've stopped, I said, okay, now I have to replace it with something, right? Because you just described that. You have to replace it with something positive. And so I go to my cheat sheet. And, the top of my cheat sheet is always play my positive music list. So if I have a day where I'm not feeling particularly good, I'm feeling out of it, I grab my iPhone, plug in the headphones, go into the bedroom or take a walk or whatever, and lie down if I'm in the bedroom and just play music for like a half an hour, however long it takes to get into the good mood. And if I do that, if I give it the chance, it works every time. That's the point of having the safe list.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was meditating this morning and I was really doing my best to go deep. I want to really go deep into the world of meditation because I know that in that place of stillness, so much comes from there, so much self-realization, so much self-love, so much feeling in touch with my life, comes from getting to that place of stillness, because that's when impulses can come from source, when I'm in that truly still place. So I was going at it, for about an hour, and it was fantastic. And near the end of the hour, I started to notice my sinus symptoms, because I was feeling, all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm sitting here with a headache, and like a pretty uncomfortable headache. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't even notice that I had a headache till all of a sudden I noticed I had a headache.
Yeah.
And then I was focusing on a little bit and saying, what is that headache? Because Abraham said every pain in our body, every symptom in our body is a sign of resistance. It's there because there's some resistance that's within us and it's finally showing up in our body, but it originated somehow in thought, maybe years ago, maybe in a past lifetime. I don't know, but there's some form of resistance in there. And so I was watching it, and as I was watching it and just sort of being with it in this meditative place, the headache just sort of changed. And all of a sudden it was sort of, I felt something more like in my throat, and that didn't feel so good. And that I was watching that, and it sort of all of a sudden changed. And it was sort of in my chest. And I was realizing, it reminded me that everything is actually just being created by me, and it's some form of resistance. And the fact that it was moving around made me think, I can change these things. Just like I woke up that other morning I told you about, and I was watching these things load into my body, that I woke up feeling completely perfect. And then I watched the symptoms one by one come into my body of my little sinus headache, a little earache, a little bit of a throat thing. And
that was
and I realized, well, I'm almost like loading programs into my body because I'm so familiar with them and because I believe in them and because they're old patterns of resistance. And then it dawned on me this morning when I was meditating that Abraham said it only takes 17 seconds to change a thought. And if these are just old thought patterns and they're called resistance, and of course they're showing up as bodily symptoms, then isn't it possible that if I just focus on what I want instead, or I focus on a better feeling part of my body, that I can actually get a different momentum going? And it was such a relief to me. That's the main point I wanted to make. It was the relief I felt at the fact that everything is mutable, that it really is, everything is sort of tied into a 68-second process. 17 times 4, that if you hold a particular thought for as long as 68 seconds, you can create a new habit, literally. You can create your life moving in a new direction. Not necessarily you'll create a habit overnight, but you will create momentum, and that momentum then will bring more of what I want, more of what I want, more of what I want. And it's a powerful thing. I had a client yesterday, and I was talking to her about how, we just can't afford to keep a particular thought going if that thought brings us down, if it doesn't serve us. And I was realizing any thought I have about this sinus condition that I think it's that I'm stuck in it, or any thought I would have about relationship issues and think I'm stuck in a particular place, or about money and I think I'm stuck in a particular place, that's all not true. These things are always mutable. They're always changing. And by us deciding we're just not going to think about the thing, and we're going to go into a better feeling place and just soothe ourselves into a softer feeling place. Abraham was saying, this thing I was listening to today, they said, you just have to choose something soft. You got to be, it's all about, they said, if there's one thing that you have to do more than anything else, you have to soothe yourself, and be in that place where you're non-critical of yourself and you're just non-judgmental, and you got to be in self-love. So I just feel like that's my big lesson of today is that I want to stop any thoughts of things I don't want and soothe myself into more fun, joyful places, and whatever that takes,
One of the things that I noticed recently in myself is something about the nature of that self-criticism you talked about. That sense of, we got to be perfect or whatever it is, but we're tough on ourselves, right? We're pretty rough on ourselves. The thing that I noticed about it, though, is that the ways that we do it often don't seem rough. And I don't know why that is, other than, when I notice that I'm doing it, my first reaction is, that's nothing. And I actually have to remind myself, no, that's not nothing. You got to be nicer to yourself than that. I don't fully, do you have any ideas about that? I don't understand why it is that it seems like we're not being that rough when in fact we are.
I definitely have a real strong idea why it's that way. And I think it's because we've had so many messages throughout our life about, just buck up, and look at my friend, the world doesn't revolve around you. Get your act together and quit complaining and toughen up and do what you got to do, because you got to survive in this world. You got to survive, and you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and no one else is going to get it done for you. I don't care how you feel, and we got that message a lot, in a way.
Yeah, you're right.
We had to live that way. That's the way the military runs. That's the way corporations kind of run. That's the way a lot of families are run. That's the way school systems are run.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of things telling us. So naturally, then our voices, they're almost like we don't even notice that have this attitude towards ourselves of, why the hell can't you get it together? What, are you just too limpy in your brain? Like what? When are you going to figure out, how to do affirmations right? When are you going to understand how to give, more loving self-talk to yourself? Look at you, and it's like, well, that's the exact antithesis of what you're talking about.
I think we have a new word for the day, limpy. I like that one, limpy. It's got a nice limp sound to it.
Yeah, it's not a good word for guys, though.
No, I suppose not.
Guys don't want to be limp.
Doesn't accentuate the macho image, does it?
Yeah, but that's another thing about performing. That's another place that we have to perform is in bed. It's like there's a lot of messages out there that you better pull yourself up by your bootstrap. You better keep your act together. And there's nothing wrong with accomplishing things. And it's good to be organized, and it's good to accomplish a project and think clearly and all that stuff. But to the degree that we're doing that to the exclusion of our own self-care and our own self-love and allowing ourselves to let in the the things we really want in our lives, instead of saying the only way I'll get what I want is if I work hard, work hard, work hard. And, like we've said many podcasts, you can get a lot by working hard, but is it the stuff you really want? And is that the price you really want to pay? Because there's a whole other way life works. And that's why self-love comes first. Ease comes first, believing that this isn't a battle. This isn't something where we prove our self-worth by how great our accomplishments are, how much money we have, and the great things that we've achieved. We don't have to prove our self-worth to anybody. But I think that was a big message I got was, you've gotta look good, and you're always being judged.
how about this for a different kind of message to get to ourselves? It's the message of real men are nice to themselves. Real men appreciate themselves. Real men don't get down on themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time we heard that one? Yeah, never.
Well, there's a whole thing in the men's movement where there are starting to give all those kinds of messages that men have to start having more of a, I don't know if you call it a feminine voice in them, but they've got to have a voice that is more loving, that's more forgiving and more encouraging in a gentle way, instead of, because men learned a lot that the way you get results is the way the Army teaches you to get results, which is you toughen up, you get really tough, and I think men are afraid that if they're not really tough, they won't be able to resist when an aggressor comes at them. That's certainly been in our history. But it's sort of keeps men really out of touch with a huge part of their own, what's the word? Their softer side, they're more vulnerable with their vulnerability, with their ability to be sensitive, to be truly caring.
One thing I do like a lot is watching how pro athletes in particular have taken on the task of being the loving, friendly person to like a young fan. So they'll see a young fan in the stands, and the athlete of say a half a century ago would have been kind of gruff with a smile and, oh, hey kid, you want an autograph and all that kind of thing. Whereas the modern athlete, they don't treat the kid like a little baby, but they treat him like a human being. And there are many more of them who are doing that now. I think it's fantastic. I don't think it gets enough attention. I think really there should be more attention paid to just how good a job most, not all, most pro athletes do in terms of reaching out to the young fans. I think they do a great job.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. And, all the things so many things that are going on now, like, are indicating that being gentle and being loving is actually really mirrored a lot in nature, like the way all these animal videos, we might have talked about that once before, but, you see them on Facebook all the time, how, this lion is taking care of this lamb, or this, crow is taking care of the dog. And yes. I mean, and you see there's a thing in life about love, about being really caring, and that it really is a theme that underlies life itself. The tiger also has to eat, and so it kills the animal, but even in a lot of those things, they find that the animal, a carnivore will kill another animal in a very quick way, in a very, almost like you could say less aggressive or less, it's not really meant to be so violent. I once heard this thing from this teacher I used to have who said, the human being is the only one who will pursue another creature to total, exhaustion. I mean, they'll like never give up the pursuit, whereas most animals, they'll run for a while after something and then they'll stop. I think he was talking more about modern man, but
right.
I understand that is how what made man so powerful in Africa back in our ancestral heritage was that we were the one animal that would run all day long, and we would literally run down an antelope. We would run down an alpaca, something that could run really amazingly, but we would just never stop running. And so eventually we come to the animal and he's standing in a clearing and he's collapsing because we've run him down. We've run after them for so long that then we can have our dinner.
Right. Yeah. By the way, I want to take a moment. We haven't had any calls in. I want to let people know if you're listening live, you want to call in. That's why we're doing the show tonight. We do the Tuesday night show precisely to make it possible for people like you who cannot do it during the day, cannot make that call, connect to the Zoom platform that we use, which is really easy to connect to. The link's right there on the homepage. Just click it and it'll walk you through it for the most part. But that's why we're doing this. We're here to talk to you. So please take a moment. You don't even have to talk about much. Just call in to say hello. But we want to encourage you to call in because that's why we're doing this evening show.
Yeah.
Oh, did I mention earlier? I forgot if I've mentioned this. The book. I don't think I've said it about the book. The computer problems that I had have been really interfering with my ability to get the editing done. So the editing is only about 45% done. I was hoping to have it done by tomorrow, and I still might get it done, but it's going to be a real push to do it.
That's quite a figure, 45%.
45%. Oh, well, you just take the number of stories and you just do a ratio. You divide the number that you've done by the number of stories. You got yourself a ratio. That's pretty straightforward.
You had an actual true ratio.
There it is, yeah.
You weren't just throwing that out.
No. I knew exactly. But my point is that even though it's a little bit behind schedule, that book is going to be coming out. And it's going to be coming out, obviously, now in March. And it will be coming out most likely in relatively early March. We'll be letting you know when it's coming. But I want to mention it because listeners of the podcast are going to get the opportunity to get a free copy of it. It will be for a very limited period of time. It's probably only going to be like, a 5-day period or less that you'll be able to get it. So you want to be a listener. You want to be a regular listener in order to find out when you're going to get a free copy of the book. And the book is going to be a collection of law of attraction manifestation stories. And we've mentioned it before, but I can tell you, Tom, there are a number of these stories that are really, really good stories. They're going to be well worth the purchase price, especially when you get it for free. But these are stories that people are they're going to be inspired by them, and they're going to be entertained because many of them are being told really, really well. So I just kind of want whet people's appetites that it's coming, and to remind you, the best way to know how to get that free copy of the ebook. There will be both an ebook and a paperback book, but the ebook you can get for free for that short period of time if you're a listener. So keep listening.
Yeah, I've thought a bunch about that. What you talked about, the power of stories, because, sometimes I wish on this podcast that I had more stories to tell, but I don't feel good about telling the stories about my clients' lives because that gives
No, you can't. No.
You can't talk about clients.
No.
But I'll tell you, to think of getting my hands on that book and reading 45 or 50 stories or however many it is what it does for me is that it reminds me that I too can do that. So if someone, went through some amazing thing that netted them some cool thing that they really had been wondering how that was ever going to happen in their life, or it was a total surprise, or however it happens, it gives me verifiable, proof, you might say, that I could do that too, and that's what I like about the stories. Oh yeah.
I mean, the power of stories really cannot be overestimated. I don't think there's any way to do it because, well, first of all, all you have to do is just look at popular culture and see what's in the movies and in the theaters and what's in the music scene and what's in the arts scene and the publications and the blogs and so forth. I mean, no matter where you look, entertainment is directly tied to storytelling, and the best storytelling is what dominates. That's where, you get the best actors and you get the best songwriters and singers and you get the best movie makers and so forth. They're the ones who know how to tell the stories. So to me, that really proves just how powerful storytelling is. And the way I look at it, I agree these are going to be very inspiring stories, but I think they also do something else. They give us fodder. They give us data. They give us wording, so to speak, so that when we want to start telling our own story, the one that we are making up that improves our lives and that defies that reality that insists on staring us in the face so that we can change our reality, That's where it becomes really valuable to know how to tell a story. I mean, even the stories that Abraham encourages us to tell. I was talking about this during the earlier podcast. The way they tell it, it's all static sentences. It's all states of being, like I am wealthier, I feel better, all that kind of thing. You don't actually hear in the story anything about how, I went out and took a walk today, and while I was taking a walk, an interesting thing happened because I passed somebody and another person passed, and then I had this conversation with this person, and in the conversation I learned about this other event that was going on. You never hear a story like that, right?
Well, you do. I mean, not to go against what you're saying, but I've been doing a lot of transcribing of Abraham Hicks words, and what that comes is in the form of Esther telling a story about herself.
Yes, that's true. You do get those. Yes, those are very good.
And those are good. I mean, because she'll give a real definite example of something that she did.
Exactly.
That illustrates it. But I know what you're saying. It can be just it can get too abstract. That's a lot of what I know I deal in is. Because I'm a coach and because I really love understanding how this whole law of attraction works, I talk a lot about all the principles, like I call them key insights. I got over 50 key insights that I distilled from my own personal life transformation using law of attraction.
Nice.
And when I'm working with clients, I at any particular time that particular insight is important for them to learn, I work with them on looking at it. Like for example, one might be, to live in the moment, like how come the past doesn't really exist and the future, it never really comes, and the moment is all we really have is because, that's all we really have. And, but the power of that, like how all of your power lies in the moment and all kinds of unfolding can happen when you realize that you're not bound by anything. You're a creator. You're creating moment by moment by moment. And so there's key understandings like that. And I noticed that as I was changing my whole life, just completely transforming the way I used to be, that it was all these insights that were just dawning on me like light bulbs going off in my head that, oh my God. So if I just tell a different story, that's how I can change my life. Things like that,
It's one of those things that once we learn how to combine it with what we knew how to do when we were kids, that's when we really learn how to apply the magic, so to speak. That's when we learn how to change our perspective and change what we believe is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Because we're trying to take advantage of what Abraham's taught us, that a belief is a thought that you keep thinking over and over again. Well, clearly then, the beliefs we want to have are ones that we create kind of out of thin air. Those are the ones that we want to build up. So we need to learn how to tell the story in a way that maximizes our best thing that we could possibly believe. And then keep telling ourselves that and embroidering it and, mixing it up a little bit, but basically telling the same theme repeatedly until we believe it.
Yeah.
Because when we believe it, that's how we know law of attraction works. Law of attraction works the best. It works to our benefit the best when we really believe it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Like if you read those stories that are in that book that you're publishing, or if you practice law of attraction on your own in your life, Abraham was saying, that you come to see that eventually the things that you want are coming to you. The things that you want to see transform in your life, they are eventually beginning to transform. They said, but you guys are kind of stubborn because you try it a little bit. And so you get a little bit of result and then things work out. And then you get a little bit more into alignment and then things work out a little bit more. And then you get a little bit more into alignment and things work out. And pretty soon you start saying, oh, I'm starting to get this. And that's all fantastic. To me, it's like if you read that book and you get, oh, wow, well, that person did it that way and that person did that. And, oh, I'm starting to see how I could change my life. And then they said, but what we'd like you to realize is that you could shorten the time between, things not working out and things working out the way you want them to in your life by understanding that it's an emotional accomplishment that if you could get things happening a lot quicker in your life if you completely stop get off any subject that's aggravating to you, any subject that's bringing you down and making you feel bad, and get on to only talking about what's making you feel good. And because otherwise you're you're giving this mixed message to the universe, and life will keep giving you a mixed message. It'll give you some of what you want and some of what you don't want, and some of what you want and some of what you don't want. And I'm finding in my life, this is what I've been doing for a long time, is I give mixed messages. And now I'm starting just this last few days to really get clear on the fact of how strong I have to be about that. I can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. I can't. There was a whole book called that back in the 80s or something, but I can't afford to talk about the things that I don't want. I've let myself be too loose about that for a long time. So, and they said, and you got to do it in a way that's soothing to you. You got to tell a story that, here's an example, like they say, of telling a good story. They say, I'm a good person. I was born a good person. I remained a good person. I'm loved. I'm worthy. Source adores me. Source is flowing to me. And I am figuring all this out, and I don't have to figure it out all at once. Things are all right. It's getting better all the time. It's just a matter of the way I feel. I like figuring this out. I am figuring it out. It's no big deal going on here. Nothing serious is going on. Nothing serious is going on.
Yeah, right.
And the same topic of our show. But I find that in this channeling I've been doing, excuse me, that's the thing that keeps coming to me through the channeling, is that these entities that I'm channeling are saying, they're just always soothing me. They're always saying, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. You can keep making the right choices. You're doing good at the choices you're making. In other words, lots of encouragement. And that's the main thing that coaching really is for clients. Abraham said the main thing you're doing is you're soothing other people and you're uplifting them by encouraging them and inspiring them in the direction that they need to go. You're not really doing anything other than tapping into their own resourceful self.
Well, certainly coaching and encouraging in particular, that's something, you don't even have to be a coach to do that. Anybody can encourage anybody else, and it's really a good idea to do it. Lately, Louise and I have really been making a significant effort to encourage each other. And I feel it. I know she does too. I can feel the difference in it, because when you get that encouragement, it just, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels better. Life feels, it doesn't feel like there's anything serious going on, right? It just feels easier. It feels better. So, by all means, using a coach is a great way to get that kind of reinforcement. And we need to hear it. Our psychological profiles need to hear it. Our subconscious minds need to hear it, as well as our conscious minds. You get enough of that, it's kind of like the mirror work I'm doing. I really do believe that what Jack Canfield told us is correct, that if I stick with that, the negative self-talk will disappear. But it's not the only way to do it. Talking with a coach and having a coach who's constantly giving you good messages, well, that'll help you get rid of it too, especially if you start incorporating those messages into your own self-talk.
That's the whole thing. A coach can't make anything happen for somebody else. They totally have to do it themselves and take complete responsibility for it. But a coach might just be a few steps ahead of them and explaining how the coach did it, hopefully, and seeing the pitfalls, the old habitual ways that a person is still acting out their life in a way that's not serving them, and point it out, and then help them see, how could you move away from that pattern and begin incorporating a new pattern into your life that'll give you the life that you want. That's funny that you were saying about you and Louise, because I got trained in this form of coaching called conscious loving with Gay and Katie Hendricks, and actually I didn't get this from them. Well, I got some of it, but there's this thing about relationships where they said that one of the main things that you can do if you want your relationship to succeed with your partner is the two of you make an agreement that you will completely no longer judge or criticize each other, that is no longer allowed in the household anywhere. Okay. Not in the car, not in the house. There never can be a judgment or a criticism of the other person. And then you complement that. That just has to be a cold, hard fact, I guess. Or a beautiful, loving fact. And then you complement that by developing the art of appreciation with each other, to where you cultivate in yourself telling the other person things you appreciate about them. And because that's something that we didn't really learn necessarily growing up. And when it comes into the relationship, the same as when it comes into our own individual lives, when we start focusing on what we appreciate about the other person and letting them know, it can transform the entire relationship. In fact, it's all you ever need. Take out, make the rule no criticism allowed. And then number 2, I'm going to look for things and let you know things I appreciate about you. I'm going to make some effort to do that. And of course, you can do little things too. You know, you can bring the flowers and you can cook the breakfast and different things to show appreciation.
Sure.
But those 2 things are very powerful.
I'm curious.
Relationships.
Because I can see how it would be powerful to do that. I can also see how if you are like most people, like me, and you do have a long history of even inadvertently saying something critical, it's going to come out at first, even if you have the rule in place. So is there any, do you have any suggestions or advice on what's the best way to handle it when one of you notices that the other one spat out some criticism?
Well, you could, sit down and have this discussion with your spouse, with your partner about the fact that, you're going to use this as a technique in your relationship and you both agree to it. And then you could have some way that you decide you're going to deal with it if the person does do something critical. Like, some couples develop a thing like, the wife will pull on her ear when the guy's starting to go into his thing, or, the guy will, put up his hands, if she starts to say something in a certain way that they've already agreed is not going to be okay. That's not acceptable way to talk to each other. Other than that, I don't know anything off the top of my head.
It strikes me as an important question. And I mean, what you're saying makes sense. You're basically setting up in advance how we're going to handle it so that it's not a surprise. I mean, because I presume that when you walk into something like this, you've already agreed, okay, yes, we're going to do this thing where we don't criticize each other anymore. But you also have to, like you're saying, you have to have like a safe signal that says, I think you just kind of crossed the line there without realizing it.
Yeah, and well, it's really good to have a way of discussing these things if it like sometimes these things are really emotionally charged. Sure. And you can't help but talk about, why do you keep doing that with the stove? It's like, I told you that's just going to ruin that burner and you keep doing it, something like that, and you just can't understand why the other person, is doing something the way they're doing it. But, that's where you want to have other techniques too, like ways that you talk about things, say, let's have a little discussion about this. Would that be okay with you? And, if there's not a huge charge at that moment, or you wait until the charge has gone down and there's an understanding between the two of you that if something comes up and it's charged, you have an agreement that you're going to leave the room or you're going to not deal with it at that moment until the charge is not so high and not so heavy. And then you agree to a time. Well, let's talk about this tonight. Can we talk at 9:00? And said, yeah, okay. I'll meet you in the living room at 9:00 on the sofa. Okay. And we meet at 9:00 on the sofa. And then you have a way that you have a dialogue with your spouse that actually works. And that's just what they teach, the Harville Hendricks method and the Gay and Katie Hendricks method. They teach you what's called imago dialogue, or I forget the other names for it, but it's where you probably heard this and maybe you tried it. I don't know. Have you? Where you listen, the other person says, when you do that thing with the burner, I feel really threatened. I feel like I feel nervous inside. I feel scared inside because I feel like it's going to ruin the stove and I just don't understand how you don't see it that way. And you let one person express and the other person just listens and then they feed back what they heard the other person say. And then you say, well, that makes sense to me that you see it that way. In other words, there's a little procedure you can follow. Mm-hmm. And if you get good at it, it takes all that charge out of it turning into, oh no, I didn't. Well, you always do this. Do you realize that what you do with the trash all the time? You're telling me about the burner, but you see what you do with the trash.
Yeah, right.
And so, and that's never going to work. That kind of dialogue doesn't get you anywhere.
That's true. Yeah.
It builds animosity. So
I'm curious also, I know you were describing it in terms of like there's an agreement that the two people have that they're going to do this kind of thing. But do you know of any data or any studies or just any experiments done where one of the two decides to just do it on his or her own without telling the other person and just pursues the idea of I'm always going to say positive things, I'm never going to be critical, and just follows that pattern. What I'm asking about is, does it have any kind of impact on the other person in terms of the other person modifying their own behavior spontaneously?
Yes. I actually deal with that with clients a lot. That's one of the main things that clients contact me about is they're having a real difficult time with their partner. And they want to know how they can affect their partner, or do they have to leave the relationship? And or are they going to stay tormented in that relationship? Or they feel really bad about their partner suffering so much, and it's all of the above. In this, the sessions become a lot about the sovereignty of the person who's contacted me, of that client learning in her own life to become, so in love with her own self and so in touch with her own self-love that she becomes more and more keenly aware of her autonomy in that relationship and her sovereignty. And by taking care of herself in such a beautiful way, she becomes an example to her partner. That's probably the main way that the change takes place. But you could build into that, other ways that you engage with your partner when the times are appropriate. But it's almost like the best thing we can possibly do to affect another is our own getting so happy ourselves, getting so in love with our own life. So a lot of the work you start seeing, well, this particular person who's contacted me has created a life that's full of struggle, it's full of strife, and she's just not happy, or he's just not happy. And on top of it, they think that their spouse is causing a lot of their problems. And maybe their spouse is a pretty unhappy person, but until the person begins to work on themselves and really find that how they can be happy in spite of the external situations, and not that they should stay in an abusive situation at all. They should definitely deal with abuse straight up and right in, immediately. But anyway, there's a lot that can be done. I actually send out a bunch of information about sovereignty. I think that's a really beautiful subject to understand. What does it mean to be a sovereign, autonomous, infinite being who's so resourced that in a relationship, you're coming from this really place of so much integrity and dignity and love of yourself and happiness that you can't help but affect the other person. And it can have a huge impact on the other person, but not always.
I would think it would have to if you're consistent about it, just because of the law of attraction. Because, right, the law of attraction says that which is like unto itself is drawn. Well, if all you're doing is putting out positive vibes, you're not putting out any negative vibes, it may take a while for the universe to stop sending you the old stuff that you signaled for previously. But once that's done, the only thing that can come to you is positive vibes.
But that doesn't mean that you'll stay in that same relationship.
No, you may not. That's true.
It might evolve into right out of that relationship because the other person, you can't really change the other person. But, you can change yourself, but you have to know at what point this relationship's no longer serving you, And
I would think also that if the other person isn't changing and all they're getting is the positive and they're not getting engaged on the negative level, it could be just as easily that they end up leaving the relationship. It doesn't have to be you. It could be them. Yeah.
And Abraham said that people will grow together or grow apart as they both get in touch with their own sovereignty, or as at least one of them does. They're either going to grow more together or they're going to grow more apart, but it's going to be organic. It's not going to be forced. And that's the beauty of it.
Right. You can't force a relationship. You can't force, you can't force love. There's no way to do that. Yeah. Not real love anyway. You
can't force another person to change.
You can't
even force yourself to change.
No, not really. Well, it's not force. I'm not sure if force even applies to yourself, does it? I mean, I suppose it does.
But some people try that.
Yeah. But it doesn't really, it's not like it really is something you can actually do. You can pretend, you can kind of convince yourself you're forcing yourself. But really, when you force yourself or when you force anybody, you're basically saying my will over your will. So if you're forcing yourself, you're saying my will over my will. Well, that doesn't work.
But we do it all the time. I mean, we say I'm gonna do this affirmation project until I get results, or I'm going to eat this way until I lose the weight, and sometimes it's just not coming from a place that's going to work because there's no love there. It's not, it's not really self-love. It's motivation rather than inspiration.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I suppose you can fake it till you make it, but you can only fake it till you make it if you've got love mixed in. If you don't have love mixed in, it doesn't work. It can't work.
It's got to be grace there that comes from your own self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, self-appreciation, self-love.
We only have a few seconds left, so we should probably draw it to a close. I'm a little sorry we didn't get another caller tonight, but I have to say this has been a really good conversation. We've been talking about something really important. I love the fact, too, that we brought in the idea that there is a new way to look at masculinity. I like the fact that we're voicing that, because that needs to be voiced more. And I'm glad that there are other, groups and movements out there that are trying to do that, but I'm glad we're doing it. So,
Yeah, it's much needed.
It is much needed. So 3 cheers for us is what I say.
Hip, hip, hooray.
Yeah,
hip, hip,
absolutely. So, Tom, it's been good. I mean,
yeah, okay, thanks.
And I got to tell you, I'm still happy because my little signal tells me we didn't drop a single signal the entire show. So I am just thrilled to pieces.
Well, thanks for getting the new computer, Walt.
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes it worthwhile all by itself. Oh, and by the way, Tom, for people who need to have that more personal thing where they get to talk to you directly, because that could be really valuable, how does somebody reach out to you?
I have a website called youarejoy.com, and it's words, youarejoy.com. And I have a page on that site that you can sign up for a free coaching session with me. It's pretty obvious. You can find it on several of the pages. And you can have a free hour with me. And then if you want to do more coaching with me because it's so wonderful, then far out. And if not, that's okay.
All right. Very cool. So, we'll do it again next week, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll do it again. We'll just keep doing it until people start feeling like they're, relaxed enough that they can call in because, that's why we want to do this. And in the meantime, I guess I'll see you on Friday as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good to look forward to as well. And tomorrow morning, of course, it's Cindy Chavez. We're going to be talking more about money and the law of attraction, and more with Wendy Dillard in the afternoon, talking about the law of attraction, just the law of attraction without the money. 2 different books that we're working on. So, again, you want to stay tuned to that. Tom, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk again very soon.
Thank you, Walt.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.